I want to talk to you guys about portable Bluetooth speakers and the world's only portable wireless battery-powered subwoofer that I know of. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasala with Audioholics. So we reviewed the original version of this Rocksteady Stadium speaker back in 2020 under the brand Killer Concepts. Wade Robson was really a good fan of this speaker, and at the time he was like, you know what, I wish they would come out with a portable subwoofer. And here we are today with the world's first portable battery-powered subwoofer and enhancements to this speaker. This is the Stadium 2.0. So how they enhance this speaker is it has more range, it's 150 foot of range. It has 10 watts to the tweeter, which is a 1.1 inch dome, almost a 3-inch mid-range, which gets 20 watts of power, and then 2 passive radiators that are slightly larger. So what that does is it allows to extend the bass response of the speaker. And I measured usable bass down to about 60 hertz. I think the 3dB point was around 60 hertz. So on its own, this is a pretty full range for its size speaker, but it would be nice to add more bass extension, and that's why they came out with this subwoofer. Before we get into that, I want to talk to you more about this speaker. So you have an option here of infinitely stacking as many of these as you want. The first thing you do is you pair this speaker with your phone, and then you just hit the Stadium button and you start adding successful speakers after that. Now you have two options. You could do this in mono or stereo. When I recommend mono is when you want to cover a large area, like if you're in a lanai or if you're outdoors or at a beach, you just want even sound throughout the listening area. But if you're doing critical listening, like I did up here in this covered lanai, you'd want to flip it to stereo. And the way you do that is you toggle it on the play button on the master speaker. And what I do is I label the first speaker that I set up on my phone with a little piece of tape. It's important to do that because this is the speaker that is directly coupled through Bluetooth to your phone. And once you do that, you can add other speakers. And once you turn the power button off on this speaker, it turns off the power for all the speakers, including the subwoofer. So on the back of the speaker, you have a stereo, left or right, or a mono mode. You have an aux input, so in case you don't want to use Bluetooth, you have a 3.5mm input. You have a charging port, and it comes with an AC adapter, so it's very useful. Now, this speaker can be configured as 1, 2, as many as you want, including the subwoofer. The packages, how they work these out is it's $150 per speaker. It's $250 if you buy 2 of them. And if you buy it as a 2.1 system with the subwoofer, it's $400 and it comes with a carrying case. And if you do it as a 4.1 system, that's 4 speakers in the subwoofer, it's on sale for $600 and it comes with the carrying case. So I want to give you a little bit more facts about my experience with these speakers on my phone. I paired the system when I was testing it at my desktop in my office upstairs. And I walked downstairs into the master bedroom, and this is a 4,200 square foot house. It's all concrete construction. So it was on the opposite end of the house, and I still had these speakers paired to my phone because I couldn't make a call. These things have some serious range. They have a 30-watt battery life hour of usage, and that's because it has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery on the speaker, and then the subwoofer has a 15,000 milliamp hour battery. So it allows this subwoofer to play equally as long with the speakers and give enough power, which is 30 watts to that subwoofer, to reach good SPL numbers to perfectly mate with these speakers. So the manufacturer specs this satellite speaker as doing 102 dB SPL output. I verified that, but that was not anechoic. That was an eighth space. That was if you have it up against surfaces, which most people would have that in an outdoor environment. The subwoofer was rated to 96 dB. Again, I verified that, ground plane in an eighth space loading. And in fact, when I look at the frequency response, most of the bass energy from the subwoofer is coming around 80 to 100 hertz, but it does have usable bass down to 50 hertz. So it extends the system bass response about 10 hertz. And it does this because it has a really powerful, about a 5.25 inch long throw driver with a 30-watt amp and a big battery. It has 2 modes. It has original mode and then it has extended bass mode. Not a lot of difference when I measure them. The extended bass mode rolls off the high bass a little bit, which is actually good because I don't want this thing playing up to 150 hertz. So if you put it in extended mode, it kind of shelves that off a little bit and it gives you a couple of hertz lower extension. And I found that you really have to play around with placement with the subwoofer. With the speakers, part of that is there's no real bass management options. There's no app control. That's the one downside on these speakers is there's no app control. So Everything is done with the setup on the panels over here. What I found the best integration I got with these speakers with the satellite was to put the subwoofer somewhere up front between the main speakers, away from the listening area, because it does play over 100 hertz, and if you put it too close to a listener, it will be localized. Definitely place it up against the wall so you get that boundary gain in the response. And what you'll be rewarded with when you have this as a 2.1 or a 4.1 system is you'll be rewarded with fuller range sound. And in fact, in this area, in this lanai, which is about 12 feet by 15 feet, I put one speaker in each corner and I put the sub up against the wall. And the trick that I use, because you don't want to have what's called precedent effect. If you have all the speakers at the same level and you're sitting too close to the back speakers, you're going to localize those back speakers because there's no digital delay compensation. The only thing you could do to fix that and to offset that is to control the level. So I ran the back speakers at about 70% level, and I had more of the sound biased towards the front, and I used the back speakers as rear fill. And what I got was a very pleasant 4.1 experience. I was listening to all my favorite music that I listened to that I talked to you guys about. I was listening to Steven Wilson. The first song was on To the Bone. I really liked the enveloping I was hearing from his vocals. His vocals sounded very natural. Good details in the high frequencies. And in the part of the transition of the song, when he says, "Lean on me," and you hear all of the harmonies coming in and the mellotron, it actually sounded like it was in surround sound in here. And I was pleasantly surprised to get that from an outdoor system. Next up, I moved on to Francine Queen Mary. That song has a ton of bass, a ton of dynamics. Of course, this subwoofer does not produce those subharmonic basses like you would hear in a real dedicated system, but it was giving me a nice little thud. I could tell there was some bass presence, and with the subwoofer turned on, it was a definite improvement over just the satellite speakers. The nice ping pong effects I was hearing was very distinct on the speakers. They sounded clean. Rocksteady really put a lot of effort into having these speakers sound good over Bluetooth. In fact, they have their own proprietary DSP that helps to eliminate or reduce compressive artifacts when you're going through Bluetooth. And I want to talk a little bit about the DSP mode. So there's two DSP settings. Clear mode bypasses their own internal EQ, and it just gives you full range sound, so you could do your EQ from your phone. And then their proprietary DSP mode. And what I found was their mode actually shelves the mid-range response off almost 10 dB, and it's also lowers the overall level of the system a couple of dB. I prefer clear mode. It has much more detailed sound to me. If you look at my measurements when I measured the speakers at the listening area with two speakers playing with the subwoofer, it was a much more linear response in clear mode. I got a little bit too much bass energy around the 100 hertz range. That's when you have to experiment with subwoofer level. And if you've got EQ built into your phone, you could definitely tone that down and flatten it out. Overall, the response was excellent from what I was seeing. And the pairing process, like I said, was very simple. The first thing I did was I turned the speaker on, make sure all the speakers are charged. I selected whether I wanted one to be a left or a right speaker. Then I selected stereo mode instead of long range mode by using the play button. Then you hit the Bluetooth and you network it with your phone and get that up. Then you turn the next speaker on, select whether it's left or right. The same process. Select whether it's stereo or long range mode, and then hit the stadium button, and then it pairs. And you just keep doing that. You just keep adding speakers to as many as your heart's content. And this really is an excellent, affordable, scalable system that you could take on the go. You could take it to the beach. You could take it outside in your backyard. You could actually use it as a desktop system. It has a little hole here, a keyhole, so you can hang it on a wall as well. So overall, I'm impressed with the system for the money that they're asking, the build quality, the ease of use. It's one of the best solutions that I found in its price class to give you portable audio on the go that actually does justice to your music. So guys, if you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Audioholics. We appreciate your support. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.
All right, guys, so I mean, look, there's no way to candy coat this. This is about as bad as it gets.
All eyes now on Milton, now back to Category 5 strength.
When you look at the rainfall totals from Pinellas up through Newport Richey and Wesley Chapel, that's where we see those higher numbers, upwards of 10 inches of rain in some cases.
So last October 2024, you guys know Hurricane Milton hit Florida. We got hit not as hard as some people in the coastal areas, but we lost power for about a day and a half. Rocksteady came to the rescue. I had a house full of people people with no power, no music, no entertainment. Luckily, I had this system fully charged. My phone was fully charged, and we spent much of the night just listening and dancing to music and just enjoying as much as we can. In fact, I thought it was quite comical. I had these speakers on top of my $22,000 Perlison speakers, and I had this in a 4.1 configuration in my family room, and people were digging the groove. They were digging the sounds, they were digging the music. So something to consider. If you ever lose power and you have these charged, you have some entertainment.